Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my talking series with our tribal ambassadors. Today, we have the honor and privilege of speaking with Mr. Coharie, and I'll give him a second to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Avery Chumley, and I am the reigning Mister Coharie from 2023 to 2024.
Beautiful. All right, so we'll get right into our questions. So, what do you feel represents your Coharie identity and community?
For me, I think it's our craft, whether it be making quilts, stream catchers, or for some of us, native weaponry. I find that tends to bring out the more of our identity than anything else. The ribbon shirt I'm wearing now was made by my own mom, and that's how she's been able to contribute back to the Coharie community.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to be able to wear stuff that our family members create because it's kind of like we're carrying a part of our family stories with us as well. And you mentioned a type of crafting that I haven't really explored as much, native weaponry. So, do you yourself make some of those weapons and what kind of weapons are they?
Yes, I'm a blacksmith. I like recreating historical weaponry. As far as native weaponry goes, it's very limited since it's not a lot of work to work with, but I have begun to make more pipe tomahawks and spear throwers.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel like you also are bringing a very interesting perspective to this talking series as a male ambassador. As I'm sure you know, throughout the state, we don't have a lot of male ambassadors representing our tribes. And so to be able to have you on to provide a different perspective, I feel like would be very beneficial to everybody who's being able to listen to this conversation. So just starting in with what do you love about being Mr. Coharie? And also to add in another part of this, are you the first Mr. Coharie or have there been Mr. Coharies before you?
I actually don't know. I do know I've held this title for 2 years, and I have been a different male royalty before. But the thing I love about being Mr. Coharie the most would probably be the travel. I love going to different powwows and experiencing all the different tribes' arenas and dancing.
I love that. And I can agree with you on that too. One of the main things I've loved is the spaces that I've been able to be in and kind of experiencing it in a different way. I feel like as an ambassador for all of the tribes and organizations within the state, going to an event in a different community than my own tribal community now has a different layer to it. Like I'm going with more of an, not more of an openness, but I feel like more of an opportunity to really learn about that community, about that tribal nation. And that's also been my favorite part of it as well. So when I asked you about your platform, you said that your platform is MMIW. So
Yes.
we're going to get into a little bit about what your passion area is surrounding your platform and to give you a chance to speak a little bit on that. What led you to choosing MMIW as your platform? What really drives that passion for you?
So I was at the Coharie powwow one day, and my sister had a friend that she wanted me to meet. Her name is Little Snowbird. She is a big advocate for MMIW and was the first person to educate me on how bad it was. Um, when I was at her house, I actually saw the shrine she had because she had a cousin go missing, and that's what led her to get involved with the MMIW movement. When I learned of how serious this was, that's what got me to educate. But I didn't make it my platform until what happened at the Raleigh History Museum powwow. Um, I was there was only two male ambassadors there, me and Eric, another younger member from my tribe who was representing Coharie. Instead of talking about what my platform was at the time, which was drunk driving and texting while driving, um, I wanted to do Snowbird a favor and start advocating for MMIW. And afterwards, what made me decide to make it my permanent platform is I had a few chiefs and tribal representatives who told me they said they've never heard a male ambassador advocate, especially for a woman's issue, on this public of a scale.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you really heard someone else's story and that kind of called you into action. I think that in our communities when we think about reciprocity and how we're pouring out into our communities and our communities are pouring back into us. That's a very special thing to be able to hear the story of another person, and it inspired you so much so that you went on and chose this as your platform and to use your platform to also be a mouthpiece for this movement. So I really appreciate you for that. And that kind of leads into speaking a little bit more about how you're promoting it. So, in what ways do you promote awareness and advocate for MMIW in your community? And it could also be out of your community as well, if you'd like to share.
I try to speak about it as much as possible, and I continuously try to educate myself to be more up to date about the facts. The biggest problem I've run into with that is that most natives don't talk about issues like this. So I've just started speaking about it as much as I possibly can to natives and non natives alike. Um, and doing that actually has allowed me to get my most precious of possessions. Um, Little Snowbird, the person who introduced me to the platform, saw that I was speaking about this very publicly in as many powers as I could, so she saw fit to award me an eagle feather.
Wow. That's like a really special thing to for her to be able to see you doing this and to give you that. Because one thing that I've also learned during my time in college is that when it comes to talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women, in my own perspective, I don't view it as just a women's issue. I view it as a Native issue. It's an issue for all of us because our women are the backbone of our communities. Our women are the ones who carry on our traditions and bloodlines through bearing children and rearing children, and just think about the value that we hold when it comes to our matriarchs. So I think it's a problem for all of us. And the fact that you're using this time to really speak about it with different people is incredible because I think sharing stories is also a way that we keep the memory of those people alive. What would be some words of wisdom that you would share with others about Native women and also about the movement of MMIW?
I would say that support goes a long way, whether it be just talking about it or offering condolences, or in some cases, even lighting candles on shrines. Um, it goes a long way to helping people through it. I would honestly just tell them to be there for each other because it's not just important to protect the traditions of our Native community; it's also important to protect the women and children of our Native community.
Yeah. I completely understand that. And one thing that really popped out when you were just speaking in my mind is the word healing. I think a lot of times when we relive these hard things to talk about, and I know that this is a heavy issue, this is a heavy topic, it's hard to talk about. It's really hard to look at the numbers or the lack of numbers and to hear the story of a hurt family member. When I think about that, I think about also what are we doing to help each other heal? What are we doing to heal ourselves? Because one thing that my sister said a while back that's always stuck with me, and I've said it multiple times, is when we are not well, our communities are not well. And when our communities are not well, we are not well. And so, how can we kind of go through this collective trauma of this issue that's going through all of our communities of missing and murder Indigenous people as we're going through that, reliving that, trying to find ways to live through it, also fight against it to help bring them home? In what ways can we also work on healing each other in that way? So, what you said about just even if you simply light a candle, doing that to kind of give honor to that person, give honor to if it's a murdered relative, not only shining light on that death, but shining light on their life. And to the missing, just making sure that keeping their memory alive and also keeping hope. I think that's a big thing. So healing was a word that really popped into my mind when you were just speaking about that. What is in the realm of giving more words of encouragement, wisdom, and advice? What is a word of advice that you needed to hear as you started your journey of being Mister Coharie? You said you're on your second year in this position. So thinking back to Avery at the beginning of his reign? What was something that you feel like you needed to hear?
I think the biggest thing was that this position is not only a great thing to do for travel and to experience other tribes, but it's very time consuming. Something I would give to myself is to say that to do this requires a lot of focus and attention, and it requires a lot of being able to manage your schedule. So, for me or any other royalty in my situation, be prepared.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I have been in therapy since the fall of last year. And when I was telling my therapist about running from Miss Indiana, North Carolina, and all of these things, all of the steps and everything else going on in my life, she asked me, how are you going to handle that? How are you going to manage your time? So I think you really shared an important point that as ambassadors, it's more so than the experiences. It's kind of this administrative thing on how you're managing your time. And I'm an avid planner, like I write everything down, color coded, Google Calendar, whole thing. And I think that that has really helped me. So that would be a piece of advice that I would give as well to anybody that's starting their journey as an ambassador. And I just want to extend kudos and praise to you for navigating these 2 years and being able to have that insight that you could then share with the next Mr. Coharie or any other ambassadors that are stepping into a role like this. What has been your favorite memory that you have made as Mr. Coharie?
Over 2 years of Mister Coharie, it's a hard question. Um, my favorite memory would probably be walking around the shops during the Pembroke powwow. That's probably my favorite memory of being Mister Coharie.
And was this during Lumbee Homecoming or was this another time that you're
This
referring?
this was not this last cycle of powwows, the one before. My first year running as Mister Coharie. Um, yes, I think it was the Lumbee Homecoming. I believe so. Definitely my favorite moment was going through there because I had never seen such a wide selection of vendors at any powwow.
Yeah, and that's what made it kind of like your favorite memory, just experiencing like a big marketplace kind of.
Just being able to see natives making and contributing to different items or artifacts that can be sold.
Awesome. And just to wrap this up into like a bow of why we are having this conversation, I know I shared with you my vision for this talking series, and it kind of goes to giving platform and space for ambassadors who are predominantly youth to speak on things that they're passionate about, as well as for myself and others to learn about the different tribal communities throughout the state. I think that's important. And as an ambassador who was chosen to represent all of these different communities and all of these different tribal nations, I really wanted to reflect an accurate representation of that. So being able to know about that community if I'm selected to represent it. And so that's kind of a part of the reason why I brought you on today. And the other part is about my platform. So my platform is titled Look Within, the Power We Hold. And I really wanted to kind of drive a message of we get to define ourselves. We hold the power to govern our own nations, to define who we are, to um, really realize the visions and goals that we have for our people to take care of our own and things like that. So, a huge part of my platform is to empower the Native people of the state to remember that we are the only ones with the power to define who we are as Native people. And so, with that, my final question is how do you yourself define being Native? And this doesn't have to be the beauty in this question is that there is no one answer. And I would love to hear your perspective on that.
I define being native as I've always said I think somebody's become native once they've registered, only for the sense that that's when they're choosing to acknowledge themselves that they are native, when they actually go to register at their tribal building. That is when I define somebody has become native.
Okay, and then a follow-up question to that. So, what kind of encouragement could you give to people who know who they are, but there may be kind of like policy things in place or other barriers that keep them from going to get enrolled in their tribes? Like, what's some words of encouragement you could give to them who want to be enrolled in their tribes, but there's barriers to that?
I would say that um, registering does mean a lot, but for some people, I know it's very hard. I would say, even if you're not registered, contribute as much as you can to the tribe and to at least some platform or some powwow.
Yeah, and with that, that was my last question. I just want to say thank you for taking this time to come up here and really share your thoughts, your feelings, your passion with us and with me. Thank you again, Avery, for coming up here and for being a representation of your people and of your community. I really appreciate it.